Welcome to Albuquerque Real Estate Talk number 456. Good morning, Tracy. It's Tego and Tracy Venturi with the Venturi Group of Real Broker here in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Good morning. We're always happy to be here and talk real estate. It's our favorite thing.
It's our favorite thing to do.
Favorite thing. We appreciate all of you loyal listeners. And obviously, if there's anything you'd love for us to chat about or you want to talk to us in person, we're available. Best phone number for us, 448-8888.
Perfect, Tracy.
Simple number.
Yeah. We've been on KIVA 1600 AM for over 9 years. Appreciate on Saturday mornings. Love doing that, as well as YouTube, Facebook, all the other normal places for streams and live streams and recording. So, Tracy, big week in real estate this week. There was the Case-Shiller Home Price Index. Okay, for me, it was a big week.
There was
a lot of data reports that came out. So I was like, okay.
It was a big week, huh? Oh, okay.
Data. It was a big week. It was the big data. So Case-Shiller Home Price Index came out, which is kind of like the standard bearer of home price indexes, but also the FHFA Home Price Index came out, as well as the Fed had their talk and raised rates quarter point this week. Nobody's surprised there. I think there was maybe one person that thought they wouldn't, but they did raise the Fed rate. And then a couple other things. One, we had a multifamily summit kind of forecast here. Todd Clark with New Mexico Apartment Advisors, who does amazing work with, tracking the multifamily apartment market, rental market in Albuquerque. He had his summit this week, which I attended, and I got some good insights from that. So
it doesn't sound like you have time for my homes of the week and my crazy stories and things.
There was that story, Tracy, we're going to do where it was 6 features that'll be a waste of money when you remodel your home. And I thought
it was a kitchen, remodel your
kitchen. Yeah.
They said, rip-offs. I thought rip-offs. Okay, but we'll talk about it.
Yeah. So, first off, let's just do a little market data. A couple things. Case-Shiller and FHFA, they both have these home price indexes where they track, the nationwide trend in home prices. And both of them saw a little bit of, let's see. Case-Shiller, it was basically flat home prices from last year. And FHFA saw an increase, but nominal, maybe 1.5%, something like that, if I recall. But both of them, the data showed that we've basically, if home prices declined in certain markets, all the markets have started to turn and start going back up again, just like we've seen here locally, Tracy. So I've been talking about it. Yeah.
You're saying even if they did have a price pullback for some months in the past year, they're back on the increase.
They're back on the increase.
So they might be down in some markets around the country,
right,
year over year.
But
they're on their way up.
Correct.
And recovering.
And since real estate is local, just for Albuquerque, year over year home prices are still up. The numbers that they were talking about are a month or two behind where I'm looking at it in real time here locally. And what we've seen here locally is home prices peaked in June and July so far. I'm starting to just get a read on what's happened for July. I know we're still, a week away from the month being over. But July looks like it's going to be up year over year versus last year. And July,
as far as prices,
home prices. Yes. Thank you. Sorry to clarify that. That's important. Yeah. We're talking about the actual home prices, median price, average price. I was at a event and somebody was asking me about home prices. I said, yeah, the average price in Albuquerque in June was $414,000. And they just, it took their breath away because they couldn't believe that is now the average price, $414,000 in Albuquerque. Median price is about $360,000. So, we've had this huge run up over the last few years, and so far we had a little bit of pullback through the end of last year, but year over year home prices continue to go up. But it does look like let me just leave with this. End of July 2023. I believe we've passed our peak home prices for the year, which is not a difficult prediction to make because that happens every year.
Every year that was the peak, or June or July.
Yeah.
And then for the rest of the year, it flattens out. Sometimes goes down a little bit by
It
the
does.
end of the year.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And the other thing we probably hit peak in Albuquerque, and I'll finish here with just the market update, is we've most likely hit peak inventory or number of homes on the market, as a total count of homes on the market. Usually it peaks out somewhere here in the next 2-3 weeks, let's say, and starts to decline. I will say, just in the last read that I'm looking at this week, we've kind of hit a plateau, and so we'll see if it starts declining.
So from my perspective, listening to you, I think congratulations to all of those who in 2020 during COVID risked it all and went out and bought a house. And there were a lot of you that did that, right? You think about what it was like with those constraints of COVID. A lot of our listeners, a lot of people in our market and around the country bought a house by maybe not even going in it, maybe having gloves on and a mask and a realtor very far away from them, looking in windows in some cases,
Yep.
buying a house without seeing it at all. We had photographers that didn't want to go out and take pictures of houses to list them. It was a tough time, but think about the wealth building for those folks that did say, I'm going to go buy a house even though this pandemic's going on. And now 2-3 years later, they're sitting with really nice equity, thinking about how much home prices have gone up. So
that's great, because there was another story that came out this week, another data report that came out from Attom Research, ATTOM. They track all the homes in the entire country, and their home equity report came out showing that the short of it is homeowners are sitting on a ton of equity right now. The homeowners are in a really good space. Now, the thing that's interesting about that, and I want to get your take on this, Tracy, is okay, homeowners have a lot of equity. However, if they go get a HELOC, a home equity line of credit, they're going to be paying 7-8% on that money. Or more, right? So it's much more difficult for people to unlock that equity today than, let's say, let's use an example of 2006, for example, right? Because 2006, everybody was using their homes as an ATM machine. Remember that whole thing? And,
Totally.
And everybody was basically maxing out their cash out equity on their homes. But today, because of mortgage rates and interest rates, people aren't able to unlock that equity the way they have in the past.
I'm going to push back on you.
Okay.
Okay. What were the interest rates in 2006? They were not 3%. They were probably 6 to 7%.
True. No, absolutely
So,
true.
I mean,
But
if they were getting a home equity line of credit, they were still getting that at a rate not low.
That's a fair point. And I was talking to a lender the other day, and I said, are you guys still doing home equity line or refinances? She said, yeah, I mean, we're still doing refinances. You wouldn't think that people want to refi if they have, let's say, a 4 or sub 5 mortgage. Why would they refi into a 7% mortgage? Well, they looked at their totality of their debt, right? They had a high interest rate
on a credit
car
card
loan or a credit card. They were able to, yes, their mortgage payment went up, but they were able to reduce their overall debt load and their overall payment because they were able to pay off all this other higher interest mortgage or debt.
So to be really clear, what you're saying is they took cash out of their house,
right?
Increased the loan on their house,
correct,
by taking some cash out of it with the increase in value and equity, and then they paid off like that high interest credit card. They paid off that high interest car. They, maybe they even remodeled to make their house worth more with the cash that they took out of their house. But they have a higher interest rate, but it's still better than those high interest rates they were carrying debt on
Yes.
other things.
So the totality of it was their actual finances came out in a better place because they
Right.
rolled all that debt into their home and instead of into these other, depreciating assets
Totally.
also, which
It's
is a different
something we
different issue.
haven't mentioned before or talked about. So yeah, there are a lot of reasons why someone would refinance. So that's a
Well,
great example.
in this, back to this whole idea that homeowners have a bunch of equity sitting in their homes right now, and really the way to unlock it is to sell the home.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the best ways. Now, of course, if you've got to move somewhere, you got to take that into account. So anyway, it's an interesting place we're at when you look at it from the big picture, finance, what's going on.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Interesting. So when we were talking about, the buying during COVID, our son and his wife bought during COVID, and I'm thinking about how that's helped them on their path to their future. They're mid-20s, right?
Yeah.
It's been a huge change for them. So congrats to all of those that did that. Tego, let's talk about homes.
Yes.
So we have one that's only going to be open Saturday. The sellers have specific things going on. It's hitting the market right now, and it's 3509 Parsifal Street, Northeast Albuquerque, 295,000. It's a 3-bed, 2-bath home, Parsifal. But it's only going to be open Saturday for showings, not open house, but showings from 12 to 5. So if you want to see that house, give a call, make an appointment with us to go and see that home. That's the viewing window for that house. So that if that one's of interest to you, we have several other houses that are on the market that have just hit the market. So if you're looking for something specific, let us know. We have a great one in Enchanted Hills on Sophia Hills that has a swimming pool. And with the heat we've been having, who wouldn't love to have that swimming pool in their backyard? Sophia Hills is a 2,550 square foot home listed for $399,900. So that one is just newly on the market. And
then the one we had
open
the broker
houses.
We had the broker open the other day.
Let me finish. Sophia Hills, Enchanted Hills is
getting ahead of you.
Going to be open Saturday and Sunday. So if you want information on when you can see that house at an open house, or if you want to make your own appointment, call us at 448-8888. And then the one we saw yesterday with a broker open, 4909 Dover Place, Northwest, right by Golf Course and McMahon, in that neighborhood of where people bought the lot and hired a builder to build, so all the houses are different.
Right there by the hospital, just west of the West Mesa St. John.
Yeah, I don't know what it is now. St. Joseph?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
The hospital at Golf Course
Loveless.
and McMahon.
Loveless.
Is it a Loveless now? Yeah. It's been a few things. So anyway, Dover Place Northwest is available. And boy, tell us about that. The views.
Huge views. Yeah, we had a broker open over there the other day, and it was amazing views. If you want big views of the Sandias and looking to the north as well, so the north and the east, amazing views. Great low maintenance yard too, which was nice. Nice big house. Yeah.
Besides the views, I really loved the upstairs. The bedrooms were all very large. They had really nice upgraded closets and things. Great property. And that one's only 407. And so, you just said what the median is. It's higher than that. And this is a beautiful built in 2006 home that's available now. So give a call, 448-8888, and we will be happy to schedule something for you to see that house or any others.
Tracy, next topic, I want to set it up. So there's been a lot of people, like I said, we've been talking about this whole idea that people aren't moving as often, right? They're staying put. They've got great mortgage rates. They've got low cost housing. Basically, they have a low payment because of their low mortgage rates, and they bought a few years ago. So a lot of people are remodeling, and they're just staying put, and they're making their house what they want. And we know that kitchens, bathrooms are always the most bang for your buck. If it's definitely a dated, tired kitchen or bathroom, right? You're going to get a lot of not just the equity and the value increase, but you're also going to get the joy factor out of it.
Right.
Because you got to take that into account. That has value.
That does have value, and how long you're planning to be in your home and enjoy the things that you might do as upgrades. So we're going to this story that was out about the biggest ripoffs in kitchen remodeling.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I thought it was interesting because we were actually talking about this the other day, because we bought a new stove 4 years ago, or during it. We ordered it pre-COVID, but it took 6 months to ship. And what was interesting is it's like a wolf or a Viking. It's beautiful blue we got to pick the color of the handles and things. So we have a brass color on it and stuff, but it was more than half the price of a Viking or a Wolf, right? And so the story talked about some of the things that people put in their kitchen that if you go to resell, you're not going to, other buyers might not give it the same value.
So here they are, Tracy. So let's go through it. So
I like the last ones first. You should start at the bottom.
Start at the bottom. Let me see. Okay, let's see. How many were there? They had 6 on the list here. So this was from Realtor.com, a story that they did. The the number 6 was open shelving.
Totally, right?
Yeah.
So open shelving.
But that was a trend for a while.
Yeah,
Really
totally.
popular trend.
Our brother has open shelving. Me personally, I could never keep it looking like model home, right? And so when we show houses with open shelving, I can hear my clients right away saying, "Oh, that is so cool, but I'm not going to want to keep it looking beautiful, and I'm going to get dusty stuff on the dishes that I put up there that I don't use all the time, and I always have to make it look show ready."
Wait, dust in New Mexico?
Yeah.
No.
So while they like the look, they don't really want it. You know?
Yeah. So open shelving was one. And I think a lot of these we have to take in the context of resale too, right? Because it's like, hey, if that's what you want and you're fine with it, that's great. Just understand that most people don't want it, I would say. Okay.
Well, in most kitchens, the majority of our homes here in New Mexico don't really have the space in the kitchen for these beautiful open shelves. You need the cupboards to stash stuff away, right?
Yeah. The other one here, number 5, was again, we're talking about home kitchen upgrades that probably aren't worth it, or they say a ripoff, right? Obviously, that was just a clickbait kind of term, but relocating electrical outlets and plumbing. Plumbing in particular.
Plumbing can be a big one. We have most of our homes are slab, right? They're concrete.
Yes.
And so moving plumbing can mean like jackhammering a channel in a kitchen to move something and get a drain. It's not simple stuff to do. So it can be very expensive. So a lot of times it's working around not having to do that.
However, I've remodeled a lot of homes.
Yep.
A few little electrical things can make a big difference, because if you're going to have a blank wall and you wire in, let's say, under counter lighting that's switched, that may be worth it.
Oh,
I would agree.
I would like it.
Yeah. I mean, if it didn't have it before.
Yeah. And thinking about when we show,
I said under cabinet lighting.
Right. Yeah. You think about when I show a house or when I'm out with buyers and we show houses, hopefully the sellers have turned on the under cabinet lighting, because I think a lot of people have it, but they don't turn it on very often. I've seen a lot of houses where at dusk or evening, having that under cabinet light sort of as your ambient light as the night's winding down can be really lovely too.
It's beautiful.
Lovely.
No, love it for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, this one I'm going to have to go against. It's high-tech gadgets. There was that whole trend where kitchens had the thing where it would like tell you what things you're out of, and I'm sorry, the refrigerators.
I was going to say the thing that pops out for me when I hear high-tech gadgets for kitchens is the refrigerator with a computer screen in the door, and you keep track of everything.
Hey, it's awesome.
And the internet's there and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, I don't think that's going to pay off. But I just think of that as something that's going to break, honestly. Who needs a computer screen in the front of their refrigerator? I know we have friends.
Everybody does.
Yeah, I know. I knew you would like that one. But in general, I think high-tech things and gadgets are so common and so much more affordable these days that I'm surprised it's on their list.
Yeah, I am too, because you think about that voice-activated device that you buy from Amazon. I'm not going to say the word because everybody's
or the other one that's from Google.
Yeah, how handy those actually are to have on the kitchen counter. So
totally. I use that screen all the time for recipes, and yeah, I'm pretty reliant on that voice activated computer-ish thing on my counter.
So the next 3 are a little different, because I think we have to put a caveat on this. So number 3 was trendy hardware. Number 2 was designer appliances. And number 1 was expensive backsplashes. But I think all of those you have to take in context of the entire home.
Totally. So if you've got a luxury home versus sort of a starter home, how much you put in and what design trends you do are going to, really You don't want to put a $10,000. Actually, I had a client just put a new Sub-Zero fridge freezer in, and it was $14,000. I'm not sure if it was fridge freezer or just fridge. But the house is a luxury home getting ready for sale, and it had a Sub-Zero that they had problems with, and they replaced it recently. And so you're like, well, that house really justifies it. Could they have put a KitchenAid similar high end, one in?
KitchenAid isn't exactly cheap either, but
No,
no,
it's not.
I get your point. So yeah, no, I think the thing is, so the thing about hardware and accessories, the fancy faucet, the fancy pulls and all that stuff, you can get crazy on cabinet hardware, just pulls and how expensive they could be. And the reality is, do they add a whole lot of value? Well, no, but you want to put something nice in if it's a nice house, right?
Right.
And it's actually one of those things that it's one of those flipper tricks. Flippers,
Right.
people that flip homes,
Put some nice hardware on there.
upgrading the hardware can make a huge difference and a huge impact on a kitchen.
So the backsplashes, to me, I've seen some backsplashes in, very affordable homes and luxury homes that really are a turnoff, but they were personal choice for somebody. And I'm thinking, well, either the person who chose that has bad design skills, they just aren't good with how things flow and work together and like different styles of things.
Yeah.
Or they just loved it. They'd just been to Italy and they saw this Carrara marble with all this veining in it, and they decided to do the whole wall backsplash of this very, very expensive high-end stuff they import from Italy that no one else likes, right?
Yeah.
And over time is very dated. So you have to be really careful. You have to love it for yourself and realize someone else might not love it. The other thing we see, Tego, is they take maybe a house that's very outdated and they spend a lot of money to update one room to be very modern. And then it doesn't, like, the style doesn't go with the rest of the house.
It's not cohesive.
It's not
with
cohesive.
The rest of the house. Yes.
Yeah.
See that a lot.
And we've seen that. We've seen it like where they do that in bathrooms and they do this latest and greatest bathroom, but the rest of the house is still 1960s or something. And it's like, oh, you got to kind of keep the house in the same vein, I think. But anyway, so that was the story. I don't know that they were ripoffs. I think it's just stuff to be aware of.
Yeah, I think one of the last things that I think people need to consider is if you're remodeling. Well, what we see happen a lot is people will do a remodel just before they get ready to sell, and it's like, well, maybe you should do it and enjoy it for some time, right? And not miss out on having that those upgrades. Yeah,
we always encourage people, do it, enjoy it. Don't do it for someone else to enjoy, right? Yeah, for sure.
I remember that with my very first house, I did that. I redid the flooring in the kitchen, and I'm like, man, why didn't I do this like 2 years ago?
Where was that very first house?
Rio Rancho, right across from Intel.
Yep. Yeah, you were right over there on 19th or something?
Unit 16 back in the day. Yes.
Yeah.
So, hey, by the way, you're listening to Albuquerque Real Estate Talk with Tego and Tracy Venturi of the Venturi Group, Real Broker, 505-448-8888. And we're talking, let's see, what is this, 456 episode number, and been on KIVA 1600 AM the whole time, and appreciate everything Eddie does there. But I just wanted to put that out there. And there was a comment on our YouTube last week, and I just wanted to talk about it. So we published this on YouTube, and it goes out, and somebody just talking about the frustration, I think, of the market. I didn't take it as a negative comment, but it was like, it's so frustrating that people are having to pay so much for kind of outdated houses. You talked about one earlier that's under 300,000. I thought, wow, that's a rarity. There just aren't a lot of homes under 300,000 anymore. I remember 2 years ago, Tracy, I said, right at the beginning of 2020, this is pre-COVID. I'm going, the $200,000 house is going to go away this year and it's never going to come back. And that 100% came true.
Well, we have $250,000 houses that are decent and livable, but you know what else has changed?
That's pretty limited, though.
They're very limited, and there's a lot of buyer need for them. So when those are on the market, like this one that I said that will only be allowing showings tomorrow from noon to 5, Northeast Heights on Parsifal, is what we used to say is, well, if you wanted that price point of house, go to the West Side or Rio Rancho. That is no longer true, right?
Yeah,
I haven't.
median price of homes in Rio Rancho is now higher than the median price of Albuquerque. So if you're just doing city proper, of course, granted, Albuquerque has a lot more older properties than Rio Rancho, which is, has a lot to do with that.
Right.
And
But
a lot more
that's
smaller homes.
mind-blowing for people who don't know that or haven't heard that, right?
Yeah.
To think it used to be, well, go over to Rio Rancho. And I don't know, people Northeast, when I used to work in the Northeast Heights, it was like people didn't know Rio Rancho. They didn't go to Rio Rancho. They just assumed it was like it was in the 70s.
There's a reason my first house that I bought was in Rio Rancho, because it was $80,000.
Yeah, but that was what, 1994 or something?
Yeah, and it was later than that. But yeah, no, you're right. It was about that. It was actually early 90s. Yeah. So yeah, you're right. Anyway, back to this comment. It's just, the frustration, and trust me, we feel your pain. It's tough out there. The thing that okay, so I want to jump to something else. Sorry, I'm going to jump around here. The multifamily conversation that was had this week. Again, Todd Clark with New Mexico Apartment Advisors. He is by far the most wealth of knowledge on multifamilies. He was a broker for apartments and all that, but really has a good sense of the market. And they had their summit. What's his name? Kyle Deacon from Deacon Properties was there, and just a lot of really wise people on what's going on in the multifamily apartment world. Two things that jumped out at me that I wanted to share. One was a lot of these older apartments, multifamily, whatever you want to call it, are getting rehabbed. There's actually money for them to be able to do that, in the sense that rents in Albuquerque were very flat for 10 years. For a long time. So it was really difficult for these owners to put a lot of investment into these properties, because they couldn't justify it because they couldn't get the rents. Well, now, I know people are going to go, oh, those evil, landlords and all this. But what the end of the story is, we're getting a lot of these older units updated now, because we have a shortage of housing, and there's a market for it, where they can put these big investments into these properties and update it and upgrade them. And upgrade the rents a little bit to justify it, right? Yes, absolutely. Because rents have just gone through the roof. In fact, there's a couple different people that track rent. Albuquerque is one of the highest rent appreciation markets in the country. I believe it, but when we look at that chart, we were very static for a number of years. Rents years. Were not going up for a long time. Another thing that I took out of that is, I've talked about this stat before, that there's about 5,000 units in the pipeline right now getting built, 5,000 doors, if you will. Apartment doors. Apartment units. Yeah, whatever you want to call it. We call them doors, that's what people say. How many doors? So anyway, about 5,000, and then another 5,000 in the planning stages. So there's a lot coming on the market. But even with that, we'll still be behind. The belief is that we're still going to be behind. We're still going to be short, even with everything in the pipeline. And then the one last thing that I wanted to bring up, which is kind of interesting, is, in the last year, there was a whole bunch of conversation about doing rent caps, basically capping the ability for landlords to raise rents. And just with that, it all got shot down, but it was kind of working its way through legislature, and it got brought up in the city council. It got brought up at the state level. Well, guess what happened? Because that conversation happened. Tell me. All the rents went up. Rents went up just to make sure if that happened, they weren't behind. Right. Yeah. So it totally backfired on what people were trying to do, which was keep, rents low. Of course, rents can only go up if people can rent that property. Of course. Right. So there is a natural where rents can't get Absolutely.
higher because the renters.
But right now, the number, just supply demand, simple supply demand, is there's still way more demand than there is supply, and it's continuing to drive rents up in Albuquerque.
Same with regular housing. We have more demand, more buyers than there are homes for sale.
Well, that was another comment on our YouTube last week was, there's not as much home sales activity, but at the same time, prices keep going up just because of the limited supply. So that's kind of the story of the market there. That's to wrap up the entire housing market in Albuquerque right there in that one sentence, Tracy.
Good job, Tego.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. If you've got any questions about real estate, give us a shout, or you could even put a comment on our YouTube on this video. If you're so inclined, we will answer it next week. We're the Venturi Group with Real Broker here in Albuquerque, and you can reach us at 505-448-8888 or our website,
welcomehomeabq.com.
Great. Thanks, Tracy.